the author of IBM and the Holocaust, which is a must-read, a book that you should have in your library in paper. Also, War Against the Weak, which is the definitive book on eugenics. His name is Edwin Black, and I welcome him again to the show. Hi, Edwin. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Glenn. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. As I always say at the beginning, every time I talk to you, thank you for all of the work that you have done. Thank you for not forgetting and indeed looking at the parallels to root things out before things go awry again. Thank you. When we spoke a few years ago, we were talking about, I was very concerned about depersonizing, depersoning people. I don't even know if there was a term for it at the time. And you said, yeah, it's digital ghettoization. And that always stuck with me because that's exactly what it should be called. And it's exactly what's happening today. And you warned about it. Can you tell me what that means and why you saw that coming?
Well, the problem has grown even graver since you and I spoke. I was standing in the rotunda of the Michigan State Capitol with the governor on a Holocaust Day ceremony when I coined the phrase "the algorithm ghetto." And the algorithm ghetto says that we will now be in a position where we can scream from the rooftops and no one will hear us because our means of connectivity has been disconnected by the Facebooks, by the Twitters, by the Instagrams, and all of these groups. And now we have seen this has suddenly come into play, not within a matter of weeks or months, but almost overnight, the crush of censorship that is coming upon people. Not only will they be shadow banned, not only will they not be able to heard when screaming from their rooftop, the rooftop has now been taken away. This is a dire matter. It's been years in coming. Everyone has seen it coming. Some have not quantified it like I have and like you have. But it is going to intensify every week until we will be in a brave new world that no one wants to visit. The next step, after Amazon has figured out it could turn off your servers, the next step is for the two companies that make the phones, Apple and Google, the Android, to cut off your phone service. I don't know if that's coming next week, next month, or next year. But once Amazon has figured out that they can turn off your servers, and maybe they'll turn off yours one day soon, and maybe they'll turn off mine, we are marching down the long, dark road.
I looked up some history the other day as I was looking at the silencing of voices. When Hitler took power in 1933, the Nazis controlled less than 3% of the 4,700 newspapers. During the first few weeks of 1933, the Nazi regime deployed the radio press and newsreels to stoke fears of a pending communist uprising, then channeled popular anxieties into political measures that eradicated all civil liberties and democracy. The stormtroopers and members of the Nazi elite paramilitary formation, the SS, took to the streets to brutalize or arrest political opponents and incarcerate them in hastily established detention centers and concentration camps. Nazi thugs broke into opposing political party offices, destroying printing presses and newspapers. This happened at a breathtaking pace in Germany. And quite honestly, I look at the news of the day just today. Trump has just declared a national emergency for the inauguration. They're talking about all kinds of controls. And if something goes wrong, God forbid, This thing is going to come down. The curtain will fall so fast, nobody will have any idea what to do or what to say. It'll be breathless. Do you agree?
Well, just to add to your insightful commentary, the group in Germany that did that was the stormtroopers, was the SD, the Sturmabteilung, and it was accomplished not only by the Sturmabteilung on the street, but a commissar was placed into immediately after January 30th, 1933, a commissar was placed immediately into every newsroom, every radio station, and indeed every organization. So they had a complete grasp of what was going on and a complete control of every aspect of humanity.
You don't need that anymore. You have these algorithms. I mean, that's
right. You don't need the guy in the brown shirt in your office saying, "Let me see that dispatch." The brown shirt is now lurking in cyberspace, and we need to understand to where we have come. Now, it would not have been possible for Hitler to succeed to the extent that he did without the continuous day in, day out help of IBM, which I covered in IBM and the Holocaust. But now we have new technology firms, billion-dollar firms, firms that can almost not even be controlled in any way, shape, or form. And we are turning a very, very dark corner. And it would be impossible for any knowing person to accurately describe what lies ahead. And in fact, historians will have a hard time identifying what actually occurred, because we've now entered that part of 1984 where people are erasing the history and replacing it.
Yeah, in real time. Edwin, I want to quote something that you said. It was up to IBM, the solutions company, to organize all 6 phases of the Holocaust: identification, exclusion, asset confiscation, ghettoization, deportation, and even extermination. With its advanced punch card technology, IBM knowingly conducted the census to identify the Jews, religious or not, made the railroads run on time, and pinpointed Jewish bank accounts to seize. Every concentration camp had its own IBM customer site. The infamous Auschwitz tattoo began as an IBM number before it morphed into other serial systems. First of all, they were just doing business, and, you got to do business with everybody, and no judgment at all, we're not responsible for anything. Then after they denied this for a long time and really tried to destroy you, but you had all of the evidence, and your book, IBM and the Holocaust, is absolutely an amazing work. But is there a difference between IBM and the potential of Google and Facebook?
That potential of Google and Facebook has already been tested in China. What IBM did, as you said, was it systematized and organized all 6 phases of the Holocaust. And I don't wish to compare the Holocaust in any way, shape, or form to what is happening today. But look at what IBM did in Nazi Germany. Phase 1, identification. Well, everyone is already identified here. Phase 2, exclusion. We have now seen what exclusion looks like, and the curtain is just raising on that. Confiscation. Well, that's just another word for pauperization. You could also use the word demonetizing, deplatforming. How many people have said we're out of money? So after that, the next step is ghettoization. Now, no one here is going to be shipped into a ghetto, but we have to ask ourselves, in this country, have people been put into concentration camps? Have people been selected for domestic deportation? Well, we know it happened with the Japanese in World War II, and in my book War Against the Weak, in the latest edition, I reveal how in Connecticut, the Carnegie Institution had conspired with the governor of Connecticut, Wilbur Cross, to do a door-to-door survey. And I know eugenics is one of your specialties, to do a survey of every citizen in Connecticut. They started in a town called Rocky Hill, and they would be ranked for their eugenic or racial worthiness. And those who did not measure up, which was thought to be 99%, would be deported to some place in the Ozarks until that was just too much. And when they got overcrowded, they were working on methods of mass murder, which they called extermination. I actually quoted the document, the planning document. It was just the circumstance of an election that this was not carried out, but they did start it. And this was done by the Carnegie Institution, by the state of Connecticut, and by the governor of Connecticut, and it began at Rocky Hill. And their purpose was not only to domestically deport hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of residents of Connecticut, but then to deprive them of their money. Remember, the Japanese were deprived of their property.
Right.
Deprive them of their assets in Connecticut, and when they were just too crowded for the camps to continue, eventually to exterminate them. And the word they used was euthanasia, which is mercy killing, under the theory that they
didn't have a good life.
They were doing them a favor.
Yeah.
They were showing mercy by relieving them of the burden of being on planet Earth.
So, Edwin, I'm going to take a 1-minute break, and then I want to come back and ask you, what have you learned from history that can help us today? Violence is certainly not the answer. As we know from the Reichstag fire, it will only accelerate things. So what have you learned? What should we be doing today to be able to not repeat the mistakes of the past? Edwin Black, welcome back to the program. You can find him at edwinblack.com, or you can follow him online at Edwin Black Book. So what have you learned from history that can help us and guide us now?
The only thing we can learn from history is that those who have not been enlightened about what has happened before, and those who are not opening their eyes, will be led to demise. Now, I am deeply concerned because there are so many potholes ahead, and people are driving right into them. Many people are shocked. I, unfortunately, and I really regret this, I am not shocked. I regret that I am not wrong about any of the predictions. In 2019, I openly predicted there might be something approaching in a second American Civil War. I repeated that last year, and several weeks ago, I had a show on the Edwin Black Show devoted to what could cause an American second Civil War. And what would it be? The number one feature would be an attempt to exact revenge on half the country, on 75 million Americans. And we see this happening at an accelerating pace. And the only thing that I could advise people is what I advise my closest friends and family. Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, watch for what is happening, and do not be surprised, and think of history before you make a move for your future.
Edwin, gosh, I wish it was more fun to talk to you because you're fascinating. I trust you. I know how careful you are on the Holocaust, to make sure that you never, ever diminish that by comparing today to that, etc. And so I know how careful you are, and I know what you have battled through to be able just to have a voice. And I so appreciate it, and I hope we talk again soon. Look in history for me about peaceful actions that we might take, and we'll talk again soon. Edwin, thank you so much. His name is Edwin Black. He is a host of the Edwin Black Show. 2 books must have in paper, not digital: War Against the Weak and IBM and the Holocaust.